In the vast savannas of East Africa, a baby wild dog, still staggering and with half-closed eyes, finds itself completely alone. Its mother was killed the previous night by poachers, leaving it orphaned and defenseless. Now, 6 black-backed jackals surround it in a semicircle, ears pricked, teeth bared, ready to turn the little one into an easy meal. The pup cowers on the ground, emitting weak whimpers of despair. It seems like the end, until, from the nearby river, something unexpected breaks the surface of the water and surges forward with a roar. An old crocodile emerges, and against all logic of nature, decides to intervene. What drives one of the continent's largest predators to save what should be its prey? This is the true story of an impossible alliance born from shared pain.
The night still smelled of gunpowder when the little wild dog opened its eyes for the first time, without feeling its mother's warmth. Her body lay a few meters away, already cold, with bullet marks it couldn't even understand. Confused, the pup crawled to the corpse, licked its lifeless snout, and let out a thin whimper that was lost in the dry wind. No response came. For the first time in its short existence, the silence was absolute. With trembling paws, he tried to follow the pack's scent, but his siblings and aunts had fled in panic when the gunshots began. Instinct told him to hide, so the orphan stumbled to a cluster of flat stones near the river. There, between narrow crevices, he huddled as tightly as he could, his heart pounding so hard it felt like it wanted to leap from his chest. The sun rose blazing, and thirst began to bite. The cub had never drunk alone. It was always his mother who carried him to the water. Now the river shimmered less than 100 meters away, but the path was open, exposed, dangerous. He whimpered softly, unaware that he was already being watched.
The first jackal emerged from the tall grass shortly after midday, its ears twirling like antennae. It stopped, raised its snout, and inhaled the warm air deeply. The smell was unmistakable. Dried adult blood mixed with the sweet, milky odor of a cub. Within seconds, a second and a third jackal appeared, forming a silent line. Their yellow eyes gleamed with suppressed hunger. The drought of the past few months had made every carcass highly sought after, and a lone cub was a gift from heaven. They began to circle slowly, keeping enough distance not to startle their prey prematurely. When the little African wild dog noticed the figures, it tried to cower even further among the rocks, but it was too late. One of the bolder jackals took 2 steps forward, testing the water. The pup let out a hoarse whine of fear and tried to bite the air, but its milk teeth barely scratched. The 6 predators closed in, wings like crows, tongues hanging out, waiting only for the moment when exhaustion would make the orphan try to escape. The largest of them, a male with an almost black back, lunged forward until it nearly touched the cub's snout. The smell of fear was so intense that it made the jackal salivate. The attack seemed imminent. It was then that the earth trembled slightly. A deep, muffled sound came from the river, as if something gigantic were moving beneath the water.
The sound that made the jackals freeze wasn't thunder, but something much closer and more visceral. The snap of enormous jaws striking the water once. The river's surface exploded in foam as the old crocodile burst onto the bank with a speed no one would have believed possible for an animal nearly 5 meters long and bearing ancient scars. Earth trembled beneath its feet. Its thick tail swept through the air like a tree trunk, and a guttural roar, hoarse from years of silence, made even the birds abandon the acacia trees. The jackals immediately retreated. The black-backed male tried to maintain its posture, bristling its fur and baring its teeth, but when the crocodile took 2 heavy steps toward them, opening its jaws to reveal rows of yellowish teeth, the entire pack turned and ran. In seconds, only dust and distant nervous barks remained. Silence returned, heavy, broken only by the dripping of water from the reptile's scaly body. The crocodile stopped a few meters from the pup, its small, cold eyes fixed on the huddled little wild dog, which was trembling so much it could barely stand. The reptile didn't move anymore. It just watched, breathing slowly and deeply, as if assessing something it didn't immediately understand itself. The pup, exhausted with fear, let out one last weak whimper and collapsed sideways onto the grass. It was then that the crocodile took a step forward, not to attack, but to place its enormous body between the orphan and the world. The pup awoke with the sun already low, its body heavy with exhaustion and hunger. The smell that enveloped it was no longer of jackals, but of wet leather, mud, and something ancient, almost metallic. When it opened its eyes, it found itself facing a wall of dark green scales, speckled with white scars. The crocodile lay in a semicircle around it, its enormous head resting on its front paws, motionless as a living rock. Only its eyes followed the little wild dog's every movement. Its legs still trembling, the cub tried to stand. Taking its first unsteady step, it stumbled and fell face first against the reptile's scaly paw. It expected an attack, but nothing happened. The crocodile simply exhaled through its nose, releasing a warm breath that smelled of fish and river. The orphan, too weak to flee, instinctively leaned against that rough, surprisingly warm surface. For the first time since its mother's death, it felt something akin to protection. Night fell quickly. When the temperature plummeted, the pup began to tremble violently. Without thinking, it crawled into the space between the crocodile's front arm and body and huddled there, pressing its snout against the hard plates. The reptile didn't move, but the slow heat emanating from it was enough. For the first time in many hours, the little wild dog closed its eyes without fear of not waking up. The old crocodile didn't truly sleep. He merely rested with his eyes half closed, watching the darkness. In his long life, he had lost count of the floods and droughts, the prey and the rivals. But there was one memory that never faded: the season when a family of hippos invaded his nest in the bend of the river. That morning he returned from his nightly hunt and found only crushed eggs and small mangled bodies. Since then, he never again laid eggs in the same place, nor allowed any offspring, his own or others, to get too close to the water under his guard. Now, feeling the light weight of the wild dog pup against its side reopened that old wound. The reptile didn't understand pity the way mammals do. Its mind worked in slower layers, made of territory, hunger, and memory. But the image of the trembling little creature alone among the rocks had fit perfectly with the image of its own dead pups. It was as if nature, by mistake or through a rare loophole, had placed there a second chance that it didn't even know it still carried. As the moon grew high, hyenas laughed in the distance. The crocodile raised its head, opened its jaws slightly, and let out a deep hiss that traveled across the plain like muffled thunder. The laughter ceased immediately. The cub, already asleep, simply curled up closer to him. For the first time in decades, the old predator felt that his body served a purpose other than killing. Dawn brought the swift heat of the savanna, and with it the problem of hunger. The pup awoke whimpering, its belly pressed against its ribs. The crocodile noticed immediately. It rose slowly, making the earth tremble, and walked to the river. The little wild dog stumbled along, fearing to be alone again. On the bank, the reptile dove halfway down and remained motionless for long minutes until a large catfish came too close. Its jaw snapped shut like a trap. The fish was thrown precisely onto the bank, still struggling. The hatchling sniffed, hesitated, then attacked the carcass with childlike voracity, tearing off pieces larger than its mouth. The crocodile watched without moving, merely ensuring that no bird of prey dared to descend. When the little one finished, smeared with blood and scales, it staggered back and lay down exactly where it had slept, between the reptile's front legs. The old predator lowered its head again, accepting the light weight against its chest as one accepts an old debt. Days became routine. In the morning, the crocodile hunted fish or waterfowl and left the soft parts for the orphan. In the afternoon, he carried it on his broad back to shady spots under the feverish trees. At night, he formed a protective circle while the cub slept. The entire savanna buzzed with barks, neighs, and roars. The greatest absurdity had never been seen before. A week later, the wind carried the unmistakable scent of adult African wild dogs, short, sharp barks full of anxiety. The pup immediately perked up its ears, its whole body vibrating. It was its old pack, reduced to 4 females and 2 young males, which had lost its alpha on the same night as the hunters and had been wandering ever since, searching for the pup they thought was dead. When the wild dogs appeared on the horizon, the little one let out a hoarse cry of joy and tried to run towards them, but his still weak legs betrayed him. He fell twice before managing to move forward. The crocodile, until then lying in the shade of an acacia tree, slowly rose. His cold eyes followed the scene without blinking. For the first time, the cub did not look back. The wild dog stopped 20 meters away, ears lowered, growling softly at the sight of the reptile. The youngest male took a step forward, defiantly, but the dominant female stopped him with a look. She sniffed the air. The scent of the pup was so deeply mixed with that of the crocodile that it seemed as one. The little one, now almost in front of them, also stopped, torn. He looked at the pack, then at the scaly giant that remained motionless behind him. The entire savanna held its breath. The cubs stood between 2 worlds. Ahead, the pack called with soft whimpers, tails wagging quietly, promising the warmth of familiar bodies, dawn races, the life for which it was born. Behind it, the old crocodile remained in absolute silence, breathing slowly, neither advancing nor retreating. There was no threat in its posture, but neither was there a plea. It was simply a presence, heavy, ancient, non-negotiable. The little wolf dog took 3 more hesitant steps toward its own kind. Then it stopped again. It turned its head back and saw the reptile still there, exactly where it had always been since the day of its rescue. Something broke inside it, the instinct of its species against the vivid memory of the one who kept it breathing when no one else would. It let out a short, almost human whimper and ran back. It climbed with difficulty onto the crocodile's broad back and lay there, trembling, pressing its snout against the sun-warmed scales. The pack remained silent for long seconds. The dominant female lowered her head, understanding what words could never explain. One by one, the dogs turned and disappeared among the tall grass, leaving only the scent of farewell in the air. The crocodile exhaled deeply, as if releasing a weight it had carried for decades. For the first time, It completely closed its eyes in the daylight.
Months passed. The cub grew strong, its black and yellow spots now well defined, its large ears always alert. It no longer fit between the crocodile's paws, but it continued to sleep nestled against the reptile's side, as if that were the safest place in the world. During the day, it ran along the bank, hunted rodents and small birds, returned licking its snout, and always left a piece of its prey beside the head of its old protector. The crocodile accepted it silently, eating slowly, its eyes half closed in contentment. The entire savanna learned to respect that impossible duo. Hyenas avoided the path, lions watched from afar without daring to approach. Even the hippos avoided the bend in the river where the reptile now spent most of its time. The place that was once just a passage territory became a sanctuary. No predator dared challenge the silent agreement between the largest reptile in the river and the wild dog that had chosen to stay. One day, the old crocodile simply didn't wake up. He lay down in the shade of the same acacia tree as always, the cub, now almost an adult, leaning against him, and left during the night without a sound. The wild dog remained there for 3 whole days, without eating, only licking his friend's cold snout. Then he raised his head, let out a long howl that echoed across the plain, and moved on, forever carrying in his proud posture and calm gaze the memory of one who, being in the right place at the right time, transformed pain into protection, and proved that even in the wildest nature, something can be born that no one can explain, but everyone respects. If you enjoyed the story, please like it, subscribe to the channel to help me bring you more stories, and turn on notifications. Comment what you thought, and leave tips and suggestions in the comments. Keep watching the other videos.